Today on Gunbelievable, we're taking a look at the ounce pistol from Third Bay. This gun folds like nothing you've seen before. Advertised as revolutionary for concealed carry, it's only a little bigger than the Life Card and less than 2 ounces heavier, but it's semi-auto and holds 11 rounds. Mechanically, it's fascinating, like the FNP90 and the Shoshaw and a Swiss watch had a baby, but sadly, this critical piece snapped and disabled the gun before I could even fire the first round. So what's the price to be paid for novelty and design? About $900. But what's the metaphorical price? Let's find out. The ounce comes in a zippered case that includes the manual, the legally mandatory safety lock that can go through this hole to keep the gun folded, a scraper tool for cleaning, a carry strap for the case, and the spent shell from the proofing test. The manual's quite dense, it's full of diagrams and details, it only tells you how to load the gun at the very end. I'm sure that's intentional because as you're about to see, there's a lot you need to learn before you're ready to use it. The gun's name comes from the Ben Franklin quote about an ounce of prevention being worth a pound of cure, but it works the other way too, since it comes in at only 9 ounces, or 255 grams, fully loaded to 10+1. Unfolded, it's close in size to a Glock 43. It'd be noticeably taller if I didn't have a red dot on the Glock, but it's a touch shorter and a hair thinner. Folded, it's smaller than a cell phone, and it doesn't look like anything in particular. Maybe some kind of vape? It won't print like a gun either, so it's very concealable. It would slide easily into a pocket or purse without need for a holster, and if you live someplace where open carry is legal, you might not have to stress so much about keeping this out of sight. That gives you options that you wouldn't have with most anything else. Picking it up, it's not obvious how to deploy it. Press this little blue trigger here, and the spring-loaded grip pops out halfway on its own. Pull it the rest of the way open, and you'll feel and hear a click as it locks into place. To close it, press this green lever over here. The blue and green and red and brass accents really give this thing a little visual pop. Some might find it tacky, but I appreciate it. As the gun folds, the barrel retracts, and it gets covered up with this red plastic flap. The gun should be safe when folded, both because you can't get to the trigger and because the hammer isn't aligned with the cartridge in that position, but it's still nice to have a visual signal of which way the barrel's pointed. The folding and unfolding looks pretty slick on a tabletop, but it's less smooth in practice. One woman I handed this to said it was difficult to use the green lever with feminine fingernails, and hers were not that long. You can't easily unfold it one-handed, and when pulling it out of a pocket or bag, it's going to take you a second to figure out which way it goes unless you've practiced a lot. If you do it too quickly, you might not lock it all the way open, and it could collapse on you as you're trying to shoot. The grip doesn't have a front strap, so you're just holding on to a grooved ridge on either side. Surprisingly, it's not too uncomfortable. Maybe it would be if you really clamped down on it, but since this gun's only a .22, you don't need to. I love that it's long enough for all your fingers, pinky included. That's not always the case on small guns. The ounce ejects downward, so there's a hole at the bottom of the grip to let the casings fall out. No wonder the manual warns against a teacup grip. The texturing is just the letters OZ again and again. Cute. And it's grippy enough to do the job. The relative position of the finger grooves and this beaver tail kind of forces your hand up really high. You'll feel the beaver tail pressing into the top of your hand, and that's good. It feels secure. And since the bolt is fully enclosed, you never have to worry about getting slide bite. The bore axis is pretty darn low. We'll see if that pays off on the range. The trigger isn't light at around 7 pounds, but it's very good. There's just a millimeter of pre-travel, almost no creep, and a clean break with minimal over-travel. It's a solid combination, not too light for stressful situations, while still being very crisp. Third Bay says the ounce is safe to dry fire, but you won't want too much, since the only way to reset the hammer is folding and unfolding the grip. That's tedious. The sights are very minimal, tiny irons, really short, black on black, and since they're on top of this hump, you only get 2 inches or 5 centimeters of sight radius. Since they're not swappable and there's no optics mounting option, precision might not be this gun's strong suit. No options for mounting any accessories either, you'll be running this gun stock. Loading is where things get really weird. That hump on top is the fixed internal magazine. Slide up the cover flap like this, using the pad of your finger. I don't love the way this flaps around loose. It feels cheap, and it can fall back down on you if you're not careful. 1 round goes into this slot at the back, which is called the transporter. You can see it move if you press on it. It's what's responsible for rotating rounds down towards the chamber, kind of like how a P90 magazine rotates cartridges 90 degrees. Make sure these white plastic fingers are slid forward, then put a round in each gap between them. The last one goes into this space between the transporter round and the rest. The cartridges don't sit nice and tidy in there. Things look and feel a bit askew, like you might have messed something up. But nope, it's just like that. While it's not slick or fast to load, I can appreciate that it doesn't require any hand strength. That's nice for a lot of people. Having loaded the magazine, it's time to load the chamber. Fold the grip mostly closed, being careful to keep the gun pointed in a safe direction. Then, press and hold this lever forward, pinching it in place while you continue closing the gun. There are 2 clicks here. The first click means you've gone far enough to trigger the chambering process, and the second click means the grip's locked closed. Getting to the first click is pretty easy, but getting to the second click takes more force, especially if you don't know that you can let go after the first click and reposition your hands. Having reached at least the first click, simply open the gun and it'll chamber around as you do. Incidentally, this means that it's possible to carry the ounce such that the chamber's empty but gets loaded automatically during deployment. You lose a round of capacity that way, and I'm confident it's safe to carry a folded ounce with a loaded chamber, but it might make some people feel more comfortable. You can see the chambering process a little through the ports on either side of the gun, though if you open the handle smoothly and swiftly like Third Bay recommends, it goes by pretty quick. There's another way to make the gun chamber around the next time you open it, though it's a lot more awkward. After closing the gun, hold down this tab over here, which is called the barrel interlock, then press the lever forward on the other side and release both. Not sure why that's needed, but it's there. With the chamber loaded, this indicator on the right side turns fully red. Confusingly though, it doesn't go all black when the chamber's empty, there's still a tiny bit of red left. According to the manual, that's expected. It only goes fully black if there's been some kind of error, though it doesn't say what kind. I mentioned earlier that the barrel moves when you fold the gun, but it does that under recoil too. Like a Shoshaw or a Browning Auto 5, this gun has a long recoil action. As it cycles, the barrel travels rearward by the full length of a cartridge. Third Bay has an animation showing how it works, and it's wild. Pretty darn uncommon too. I think there's only one other gun in current production using long recoil, and it's especially unexpected in a .22, where blowback is the norm. Having a locked breech should reduce recoil and fouling. When I first got my ounce, I practiced loading and unloading with snap caps. Maybe I got unlucky, or maybe it doesn't like my particular snap caps, but as I was reopening the grip, I felt just a little resistance. I didn't yet know if that was normal, so I stopped and thought to myself, okay, not gonna force it, I can always disassemble the thing if it's actually jammed. So, consciously trying to be delicate and judicious, I applied just a little pressure to see if it was stuck or not, and the handle link lever snapped and fell out. Dang it! The folks over at Third Bay were very quick and kind. They sent me a free replacement lever and a video on how to install it myself, which wasn't too bad. I noticed I wasn't the first person they'd sent the video to, so I don't think I'm alone in having this problem. I later saw that both the manual and some of their videos tell you to watch out for unexpected resistance while folding the grip. Just wish I'd seen that earlier. So familiarize yourself with how it normally feels, pay attention, and when in doubt, disassemble. Speaking of disassembly, let's do that now. Clear it by emptying the magazine and performing the loading procedure, which should make the chambered cartridge fall out. If you're tempted to dry fire, that's fine, but you should cycle the grip to recock the gun afterwards. It simplifies things later. Leave the magazine flap open, then close the grip halfway and rotate the right panel of the gun clockwise. Pop it off and set it aside. Pull the barrel forward enough for this ridge on top of it to clear the frame, then lift it out. Separate the bolt from the barrel by pulling on this brass piece, then twisting on the chamber end. Pretty wild that this thin piece of metal is the bolt, but that's long recoil action for you. Third Bay recommends you get out that scraper tool and remove any fouling on this lug, as well as any fouling behind the transporter if it's not moving smoothly. That's as far as you should need to go for regular cleaning, but I did have to take the other panel off to replace that lever, so here's a photo of what the mechanisms look like from that side. Not quite like anything I've ever seen before. Reassembly has a couple of catches. First, you'll need to make sure you line up this notch in the barrel with this pin in the frame. Fold or unfold the grip to move the pin to where it needs to be. After putting the barrel back in, double check that moving the grip moves the barrel too. Second, you'll need to insert the bottom of the right grip panel into the matching notches on the left panel before you lay it down and rotate it back into place. If the panel doesn't want to click back in, you've probably unfolded the grip a bit. Hold down the back of the barrel so it doesn't jump out of its track, then close the grip far enough to get resistance as it starts to push on the hammer, but don't go too far. There's a sweet spot, you'll figure it out. Now, onto the range. There are several surprises in store for you when you shoot the ounce. It's totally controllable and has minimal recoil. It is a .22, but it doesn't feel exceptional. Its lightweight should make it snappy, again, for a .22, but its long recoil action and low bore axis should have the opposite effect. Maybe they're canceling each other out? It's hard to tell. You'll feel the empty cases bouncing around and falling out the bottom of the grip, which is quite a strange sensation. Sometimes a case gets hung up in there, and then the next shot causes two to fall out at once, which feels even weirder. Speaking of strange sensations, I'd sometimes get a prickly feeling on the fingers of my firing hand from the inside. Maybe some unburnt powder is making it through the mechanism and getting around these flaps? Not sure, but it wasn't painful, just odd. The ounce's reliability is just okay. It ran fine for the first 100 rounds or so, using several types of ammo, but as it got dirtier, it started failing to eject with 36 grain Federal Champion. Switching over to hotter CCI mini-mags made it run reliably again. That makes me think it's a fouling problem. You'll want to keep this gun clean and choose your ammo carefully. Third Bay has a list of recommended ammo on their website. It's not too picky, but when it comes to bulk pack range ammo, the Ounce seems to prefer 40 grain loads from Federal and CCI. Despite the mechanical complexity of this gun, I'm not worried about being able to clear malfunctions. You get all the access you need by taking off the side panel, but I am worried about not noticing a malfunction until it's too late. One of my malfs happened on the last round in the mag, so I didn't realize I had a jam until I'd reloaded the mag and tried to chamber a round. Doing this at home is one thing, but the range is a lot more distracting. It'd be real easy to close the grip without watching for unexpected resistance, and we know what happens then. I will say that when I got these malfunctions, the loaded chamber indicator was fully black, so that answers that. The final surprise is accuracy, or lack thereof. As soon as I started shooting it, I noticed shots just not going where I expected. To check myself, I shot this group on the number 6 box at 7 yards while bracing against the bench. Under those conditions, I expected a group the size of a quarter, but it's a lot bigger than that. To triple check, I handed the Ounce to Mrs. Gunbelievable. She is stellar at shooting for pure accuracy with pistols, and she got terrible results while going for the head box. The ultra-minimal sights don't help one bit, but I suspect there's also something mechanical at play. I think that as the barrel recoils and returns, it's shifting around shot to shot. There's some play between the barrel and the frame, especially vertically. You can feel and hear it move if you press on it. The accuracy is good enough for modest distances, but it's a step down from what we're all used to. So who is this gun for? Third Bay says they want to stop crime by getting guns in the hands of people put off from carrying till now, and they hope the Ounce's size, weight, concealability, and controllability will do that. But I know a few people in that demographic, and when I showed them the Ounce, they were put off by how strange and complicated it is to operate. Other guns might be heavier and harder to conceal, but they're far more intuitive. And for people who never practice, that's compelling. For those who do, a compact 9mm and an appendix holster is far more capable and faster to deploy. Both groups will want carry guns that aren't fragile, so between the snapped lever and the complicated mechanism and this warning in the manual that dropping the gun might disturb the action and need a reset, I'm not sure this is the first gun I want to pull out if I'm getting wailed on. And of course, the price is an obstacle for anyone. $8.99 is a lot to ask in a world where that CZ and holster I just showed can be had for half as much, or about the same if you include the red dot. So here's my suggestion. Think of the Ounce like an antique pocket watch. It probably shouldn't be your first choice. There's a learning curve. It's gonna need proactive maintenance. And you'll want to be gentle with it, because as I found out firsthand, it isn't idiot-proof. But it's a heck of a conversation starter. Every time you pull it out, someone's gonna ask questions. And of course, if your Apple Watch runs out of juice, it does work in a pinch. There aren't a lot of companies in the gun space doing real innovation, and those that do often turn out products that don't frickin' work. So despite its limitations, fiddliness, fragility, price, and limited appeal to its target demographic, the Ounce gets a thumbs up from me for innovating in a potentially useful and undoubtedly nifty way without sacrificing too much reliability. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we get to see a simpler, more robust, and cheaper version of the Ounce in the future. I'd earnestly consider it as a backup gun. For now, though, it's a barbecue gun. If anyone ever invites me to a barbecue. That's it from Gunbelievable on the Ounce from Third Bay. Smash that like button, be sure to subscribe. If I get 1 million subs, I'll clean it blindfolded.